Hi, I'm Dave Koch. Welcome to the 10th episode of this workshop on starting your own photo business in real estate photography. I hope you've learned a lot so far, and today we're going to get into some of the fun stuff. Today we're going to get into editing. You know, I don't think you can help it. I can't help it. There are so many times I'm out shooting and I look at the back of my camera and I'm just like, wow, that's that's so good. I just love that. And you just get really pumped for the picture you just shot. Then you get it home and you look at it on a big screen and you realize, oh, it's horrible. I think small images and thumbnails are deceptively good looking, and I think that's why Instagram works so well, because the pictures are so dang small and anything will look good at that size. Once you get them bigger, there's problems. And that's why God invented editing. And that's what we do. I know there are some purists, maybe not so much in real estate photography, but I know in landscape, any editing you do is is bad, or whatever. And it's not prevalent, but there are those who say that, and I 100% disagree. And a really good editor can make even a bad picture look good. Editing, super important. I think when I started this out too, I talked to you about, with all that extra time that you have between, when you've got one shoot a week, take the time to learn to edit. I again want to reiterate that. Take the time to learn to edit. If you can get somebody else's pictures too and you can edit theirs, oh man, that would really help, I think. The more different things you're exposed to, the more problems you have to solve, and the greater your knowledge becomes in both photography and editing, because you start to understand what works, what doesn't work, what can I get away with, what can I not get away with. And the single word for that is just experience. The more experience you have, the better. I think most photographers will tell you, if you want to get good at photography, shoot every day. So shoot and edit every day, and you'll get a lot better at editing. All right, let's start off with probably where you're going to be starting off, and that is HDR. Probably you're going to start with exposure 200 and 2 over. That's, I think, kind of the standard. And that will generally work well. In this environment that I'm in right now, 2 under, 2 over would work really, really good. We don't have a blazing sun. We're clouded over today. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the sun comes in and out a little bit, but mostly we're socked in right now. So we don't have any glaring highlights and we don't have any super dark areas. We've got a good low contrast lighting situation here. And that you may even be able to survive with a single exposure. But let's go back to HDR. The third option that pretty much all of us have is the Lightroom, the one built right into Lightroom. You just highlight your 3 images, right click on it, choose HDR blend, and it sends out a blended image. This one I like because it's so easy. It's just right there in Lightroom and you can just pop it out. And I will do that a lot when, I just need something quick and dirty. And that's the quickest and the dirtiest. And then you can do some adjustments and some editing in Lightroom and generally pull a pretty decent picture out of it. And especially if you're doing something where you're combining that ambient with maybe a flash layer or a couple of flash layers, or even maybe another ambient layer for specific items that were lit perfect that you want to bring out. Those are all really, really good options and would work a lot faster than the manual versions of them. So that's probably where most people are going to start, is, honestly, probably with the Lightroom HDR. And you can make really decent images. The downside, especially if you don't know what you're doing or if you're starting out, is there's an overabundance generally of blue in the images. If you are using any light mixing at all, if you've got daylight and you turn on incandescent lights, you're going to get horrid colors. And there's just no way around that. HDR does not control the color well at all. So that really is the problem there. And that's why if and when I do use an HDR image, I'm going to combine it with something else to tame a lot of those colors or remove those extra blues. Exposure blending is how we really save our asses in Photoshop. And what I mean by that is you can combine multiple different images, all that have something about them that makes them great, but the rest of the picture sucks. So you bring in the different parts of each image through layers and masking, and you can bring out the best parts of 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. Just like I was talking about with color correction. Just put a layer on that corrects that one thing and bring in just that one part that fixes that. It's the same sort of idea that a window pull is. You're just adding another layer with a window that looks really good and then masking it and bringing it in. So never discount the importance of exposure blending. And anytime you have a picture and you're looking at it and you're going, that's okay, except for, that's when you need to reach in your little bag of tricks and pull out exposure blending. Make a new copy of whatever your top image is there, fix that one part, blend that in, look at it again. Boom, you fixed it. That's the magic of editing right there, I think. Sharpening and detail, adding sharpening and detail. That's, I know some people do that at the beginning. I do it at the end. And that's because I think sharpening, at least the way I do it, will react to different images differently. And I don't want some parts sharpened more than others. And I just want to take care of the whole thing all at once. So I do that kind of in my last little bit of editing. I'll do all my straightening because by now I've reduced all those multiple layers to one single image. And that is easy to straighten. And then I'll do my sharpening and take the noise out at that point. And I don't think you lose much, especially, again, our final images are 2,000 pixels wide. Doesn't really matter a whole lot on these things. For a giant landscape that's going to be blown up and cover a whole wall, which I have done twice now, it matters a lot. You have to be really careful with your sharpening and your noise reduction. But for something that's going to end up on MLS, you know what? I use Topaz Photo AI, and that's pretty much all you need. The only thing I would say is I think it tends to over sharpen. I usually bring sharpening down to about 20% or so. Other than that, I have found a lot too in denoise. I'm pretty sure it's in the denoise segment that Topaz adds artifacts, really crazy, big, crazy artifacts. And you have to watch for those. It'll only happen like every 10 or 20 pictures, but it happens and it literally makes the picture unusable. So you do have to watch Topaz really, really close. It's not always perfect. And, like anything, you have to add your own personality into it. All right, let's talk about sky replacement. Today is a day we would want a sky replacement. It is yuck out there. I honestly think we don't even need to talk about this much anymore. It's so easy to do in either Photoshop or Lightroom that, you know what? Yeah, you push a couple buttons, it's done. Walk away. Do it if your client needs to, charge extra for it if you can. If that's part of your deal, do it on every picture, but I don't. I will do it if I'm specifically asked, but it's not something that I aim to do. Removing distractions like high tension wires and things like that. Don't. You are, well, you're not ethically bound to anything. Your realtor is, and they need to represent the property honestly. So you can't change material things about the home. You can't remove wires or power lines or anything like that. You cannot patch a hole in the wall. You can hide the wires from an iPhone charger. That's not material. That's not part of the home. But a hole in the wall is. My test when I'm in the field is you took the house and you turned it upside down. Would it still be there? A hole in the wall still would be there. Anything that would still be there, you can't touch. You should not change. Anything that would fall away, like an iPhone cable or something like that, you can generally Photoshop out and not have a problem with. If you are concerned about it, bring that up with your realtor right away. With commercial, it's no big deal at all. I do it all the time. I remove wall sockets, I remove exit signs, fire extinguishers, all that stuff. Commercial, it's fine. Real estate, it's not. So just be very careful if they're asking you to do something, just know that it's on them, especially if they're asking you to do it, but don't do it on your own. The only other exception I would make, and I've done this a few times with realtors I know that, again, hole in the wall. And I say, oh, yeah, we've got a guy coming in tomorrow who's going to fix that. And I just say, you swear? And they say, yeah. And I say, okay, I will fix that because of the trust factor with the realtor. And again, it's on them, it's not on you. So ethics are a thing, and think about that. As far as editing as a whole, develop a repeatable process, and that starts from the moment you ingest the images. They should go somewhere specific. They should go to a specific folder on your drive. And then what I do is I open Lightroom and I bring them into Lightroom from there into a folder I've already prepared with the name of that property. My naming process may be different than yours, but I think this works really good. First, you want to start with the date, and you do it in this order: year dash month dash day. That way they'll stay chronological. Then I put in the realtor's name, then a dash, and then the address, and then a dash, and then the city. Because a lot of times when you have to go back, you won't remember the address, but you'll remember the city. So those are all the search terms that I need to research and find something when 2 years down the road, Kerry Williams calls me up and says, hey, remember that place in Sandy? I think we shot it in September. Boom, I've got it now. I can find it from that. So have a process that's repeatable and has the information that you need to go back and find it again with. That's really important. And then what I typically do is, I was going to say I pick my images, but just about everything I shoot is a pick. And that's generally the case in real estate photography. If you're shooting people or weddings, you do have to pick your images. Real estate, I'd say 95%, if not more, of what I shoot, I use. Then I go through and I just do my basic edits and I just do image by image by image. Usually start with the exteriors. Those are done quickly. My interiors are usually multiple layers. So I just edit each of those, get them all set up, shoot them over to Photoshop, do that layering and all that, send it back, do the straightening, do my denoise and sharpen, and it's done. Then I will export all. Once they're all done, I'll export them into a folder again with the address and the realtor name because I will save that export. They're JPEGs. They're small. Who cares? And then I save everything. I've got an 8 drive somatic, big hard NAR backup drive, big one, 8 drives, lots of space. So I save everything Generally, it hasn't. It's only really been useful for like when I want to enter a contest with an image and I want to go back and mess with it. But that's generally how I do it. And then every year I start a new catalog. I just started, the 2025 catalog, and I stopped using the 2024 catalog. And, in a year, I'll do the 2026 catalog and turn off the 2025. And then I just archive that 2025 one. I might, 5 years down the line, go back and just keep the saves and remove the raws. But I'm not even close to running out of space. So it's no big deal. My point is, have a process that goes from beginning to end. And again, just keep repeating it. That way you'll always know where your images are and where everything is. You need a good backup regimen too. Time Machine is not it, by the way. So don't rely on that. Have your own. Synology has a wonderful backup system, and that works really great. So does Backblaze. I'd recommend both very, very highly. They're an investment, costs a little bit of money, but you know what? The peace of mind, not having to worry, that's priceless. There are very good alternatives to most of the things in Lightroom. Although, man, some of the upgrades recently in Lightroom with the ability to mask within Lightroom, some of that is really, really great. And Lightroom itself is very, very kludgy. Man, is it slow and nasty. Here's one thing I will tell you. The new Macs, the M1, the M2, the M3, now the M4s, just love Adobe software. There was a night and day speed increase when I bought an M1 MacBook Pro, and it just, yeah, that's the best thing to happen to Adobe in a long time is the M1 Apples. So if you're looking computer wise, get an M1, an M2, an M3, or an M4, and you'll never look back. Just make sure you have plenty of memory. Other add-ins, I've already mentioned I use Topaz Photo AI, and that generally works pretty good, although I have found problems with it and repeated problems in different versions. So it's not something they're fixing or doing very well with. And that's kind of a problem, I guess, for them. But if you watch it closely, you'll catch it. Another one I really like are the Nick plugins. And those have been the poor stepchild so many times. They bounced around from here to there to there. They were at Google and they were free at one point, and Google did absolutely nothing with them. Google is a horrible company. And now I forgot who they're with. They're European. I know because every time I charge an upgrade for them, my bank cancels my credit card because it thinks that it's, somebody using my card illegally or something. Anyway, it's really weird. Anyway, I do really, really like the Nick plugins. I use Color Effects Pro a lot, and the black and white one, Silver Effects, is a lot of fun. Not for real estate, but for playing around. So those are things I use a lot. I would say I use Nick a lot in my commercial photography too. Just wonderful stuff. So we've gone through a lot of photography, editing things. The one other thing that I would say is kind of an overview of all of it is you have to be consistent. You can't have varying exposures, varying color temperatures between images, especially if they're in the same room. So when you're done editing, sometimes it's good to walk away for 20 minutes and give your eyes a rest from staring at that screen and let them see other things. And then come back and judge your pictures. Do a slideshow and look at them one right after another and see if they're consistent across each other or not. And if they're not, re edit. During the course of all this, you may develop your own personal style. I think it's funny, when I go on some of the beginner photographer forums, and somebody will shoot a picture that is technically less than than good, let's just say, and they defend it by saying that's my style. And I just think, you've been shooting for 6 months. You don't know what a style is yet. And maybe that's cruel and mean, but what I desperately was searching for my own style for so long, and I just never could create it. And then I forgot about it, and 6 months later, all of a sudden I realized I have a style, and it naturally came out of me. Don't force a style. Just try and do your best. Your style comes from doing what looks good to you, and develop images that look good to you. And in 6 months or a year, you'll look back at it and you'll go, oh, that's what my style is. I shoot that. That's where your style comes from. Don't force it. Don't try and make it. And, if I could tell you one other thing, it's don't ever, ever, ever touch the vibrance slider or the clarity slider. Except to turn them down. Never, ever, ever turn them up. Does not help pictures at all. That's free advice. No extra charge, I promise. So in conclusion, let me just say that, editing is about enhancing. It's not about fixing pictures. It's about making them better. Hopefully they're already really good, and you're just adding that final, like I said, in the learning curve, that 80-20 thing, the photography is 80% of it. You're just fixing that final 20%, that harder 20%. So think about editing as that final cleanup of your images. It's super important to have a consistent workflow. So develop that now while you're not busy, while you've still got a chance to experiment and try this and try that and try that. And you may think it's silly labeling everything so densely so that you can find it later. And it is when you've got one shot a month. But when you've got, 12 shots a week and you need to go back to them, yeah, you'll find that by developing those skills and those habits early, it's really helping you out once you become busy. Use the right tools to make your pictures work. If you're fighting against whatever software you're using, or if you don't know how to use it, that makes it that much harder. Use and develop skills in one specific platform and just stay there and just become really good at that. Like I said, with photographers that want to do real estate and weddings and astrophotography, you're not going to be good at all three, and the same goes for editing software. Don't try and learn three different ones. Just use one and get really good at it. Develop your skills and just go with that. Well, that about wraps this one up. In episode 11, we'll talk about how you can build and strengthen relationships with your clients and how to keep those relationships alive. That's a really important thing for long-term growth of your business. One final pro tip to wrap this all up: resist the urge to over-edit. We're trying to do natural looking photographs. If a picture doesn't look natural, if it doesn't look like it looked to you when you were in that room, you're over editing. Stay away from vibrance, stay away from clarity, and turn down the saturation if you need to. Make it look natural, make it look homey. Well, I hope something in this episode really clicked with you. I hope you learned something. If you did, there's a much longer version of it available on my website. There's a link in the description below.